of our Watercolor Week Fabulous Flowers. I hope you have been having just the best time so far this week. Oh my goodness. I have loved every minute of this with you. And now I've got my painting lips on, so we're ready to go. It has been so much fun painting all week with you, and it has made the week go really quickly, which is wonderful because my husband's been out of town. I hope that you are loving it as well. Sorry, just reading the comments here. Jan said, I just had an epiphany. That first day you had us use the pipette to put water on our palette. I have been doing that every day. I think we don't have to. My flowers have been mostly too wet. That's not why your flowers are too wet. I'm having, that is, you have too much paint and water on your brush. It doesn't have anything to do with putting water on your palette to begin with. But having said that, you don't want a ton, just a little. You can also use a spray bottle in case that's too much. I kind of flip doing spray bottles and pipettes for my kits just so that you get kind of a assortment. But I like using, oh, my goodness. I like using spray bottles. Or Stampin' Up has spritzers. These work really nicely as well. I think I had a spritzer in our last box. So, okay, what else do we have here? Is there a right and wrong side to the stencils? Not usually, no. I'm trying to think. I feel like maybe there was one once for the design, but actually, no, I don't think so. Let's see. So if you are hopping on here, first off, welcome. Thanks for joining us. If you could comment what your favorite paint color is, and it doesn't have to be this palette. If you don't have any watercolor paint, then tell me what your favorite Stampin' Up color is. Let's see here. Okay, someone said, anyone else having issues with their flowers? What do you mean by that? If you are having trouble, I would say practice more is probably the thing. It really, ooh, I love seeing what you guys are choosing. You just can't get the brush strokes. I would say we need to practice more brush strokes, for sure. Ooh, Robin said her favorite paint color is Lunar Black from Daniel Smith. That's an interesting choice, Robin. Huh. I love the color that looks like Pretty Peacock. Both Stampin' Up and in the palette. That, Patricia, is probably sea glass. I think that's the color you're talking about. I would say my very favorite color in this palette is definitely the Burke's Parrot Pink. Love that color. But a very close and second favorite would be sea glass tied with cerulean blue hue tied with cobalt green. I like all of those colors a lot. Ooh, Paulette says Blackberry Bliss. That's a good color too. Blackberry Bliss. And we have a color that's sort of Blackberry Bliss, and that is the Earthshine Violet. That's another really pretty granulating color. Mary says Viridian Green. You know what? Viridian was on the short list for this, and ultimately I just kicked it out. So yeah. Um, Sherry says cerulean. I know it's a really pretty color. And I think one of the reasons I like it is because you can get such a huge range just by adding water to it. So that's really fun. It's a good one. Let's see. Sandy's favorite SU color is Blackberry Bliss. You know, that's funny. I don't use Blackberry Bliss is actually not a favorite of mine because it's so dark. And I think partly because the cardstock is so dark, but also the ink is really, really dark. I would say I would pick Berry Burst over Blackberry Bliss. I really miss Rich Razzleberry. I liked that. I was surprised when they chose to keep Blackberry over Rich Razzleberry. Just my opinion. Maybe we should pull out Blackberry Bliss and see what it does with watercoloring. Ooh, Lee said Cascade Green. That was a color that I've historically really enjoyed as well. But I have to say, Lee, I have been liking Prussian green over Cascade Green a little bit. And part of the reason is because there's no like brown grittiness to it at the end. There's something in there that I don't love. So yeah. Oh, you guys are putting out such great colors. I love seeing all of these. I would also say that Granny Apple Green is a favorite color of mine. I've mentioned it in my green mixes that I really love it. And so that's a lot of fun too. Speaking of color mixing, I do have a, I think, I don't, well, so I have bonus content coming, you know, every day, but I also have like additional bonus content. And one of those things is a color mixing lesson. So I am anxious for you guys to see that because it's going to be a lot of fun. And color mixing is a great opportunity to practice both mixing colors and understanding what happens when you mix colors, as well as looking at the water amount you have on your brush. And we're going to talk a lot about that with water control and whatnot too. Okay, well, friends, let's take, and I chit-chatted kind of a lot yesterday. Yesterday was a rough day, I'm not gonna lie, like really rough. Today was better, so that was nice. I had a really good evening or afternoon with Carl today, and last night we bonded over watching Modern Family and reruns and a little Tillamook ice cream. Those of you who don't know, Tillamook is a brand of ice cream in Oregon, and we went to like their, I guess, headquarters or whatever, and so good. But he finished off the thing of Tillamook that we bought because, of course, he eats everything. So yeah. He loved that my son spends time with me. He is really sweet, but he's really struggled with the summer. The events of the summer have been really tough on him. His injury is just really, it's really hitting him hard. He talked to his coach today. His coach has been on vacation, so I think that helped. His coach was like, I need you to help. So he's happy that he'll be able to fully participate as much as one can when they're not running in everything. So I just hope this doesn't extend beyond cross country into track because that would really break his heart. So anyway, but on a positive note, did I say I broke a finger? No, I cut my finger really bad. You guys, I've been cutting paper for 27 years for card making, and I sliced my finger open yesterday. And it like immediately brought tears to my eyes. It really hurt and it throbbed all afternoon. It was not a paper cut. It was my paper cutter cut my finger. Not a paper cut. It was a blade through my finger. And it was pretty deep. In fact, I almost thought I would have to get a stitch or two, but it's all right. It really hurt. But in all of that time, I've never cut myself cutting paper. Like, how crazy is that? Anyway, and it was kind of bloody. But dang, it was just like, what the heck? Anyway, I have to say, Shelly was here yesterday helping. I talked about that, and I think she was like our emotional support friend, because I think it really helped that she was here. Robin, I don't think I need a tetanus shot. I think I'm good, but yeah, it hurt. And when I took the Band-Aid off and like left it open to air overnight, which I think was good, but I covered it back up because it's kind of ugly. Plus, it's like the remaining flap of skin is like catching on stuff, so that's gross. Anyway, that was probably more information than you needed. Anywho, I'm going to flip my camera around, and I'm super excited because while I'm live tonight, all the boys are having dinner together, which will be good. So they can enjoy some time together, and we can enjoy some time together. So I'm going to flip my camera around, and we are going to have some fun tonight. I've got, oh, let's fix that. There we go. There we go. I've got a fun little exercise for us to start with once I clean up my my mess. Oh shoot, I meant to clean out my mixing palette so I'd have some fresh clean spots on here, but that's okay. We'll make do. So first of all, tonight we are going to do a few different things. One of the things I really am excited to do is we are going to work with our stencil. But before we do that, we're going to have a little warm-up exercise. Okay, I cut more paper. Did I leave it on the table behind me? Well, I've got enough right here, but I might need to run behind me and grab my paper. Okay, so let's start with a warm-up exercise. I always love doing these warm-up exercises because I think they're great for just getting your brushes and your hands going, which is always a good thing. So choose a brush, any brush. I think that I'm going to use my number 8 round. This is a really nice brush for this activity. And we're just going to, I'm not going to wet my paints down because I've actually been using them. I might wet this color down and maybe that color down. But I've been using them quite a bit today, so we're good. Let's see, we did purples, pinks and purples. I'm trying to think of what colors we've done in our various warm-up activities. So I feel like I'm skipping out on some colors, but we've done greens. We've done, have we done like yellows and oranges? I don't know. Well, anyway, let's see. We're going to start here in the middle with a little bit of our Berks, and I'm going to do this right side up. And this is, if you've done any events with me before, you've done this activity, which is to just paint circles. And what we're really focusing on tonight is a circle like this, where there's no drip of blood. Oh my gosh, I just was going to say of blood, of water. So I can tip this and nothing is sinking. There's no water pooling anywhere. It's just a nice even circle. Okay, and we're going to follow that up with another circle right next door. And we're going to allow them to kiss and see what happens. And again, we want, this is a practice both of getting a nice circle with nice crisp edges, no draggy marks. And if we get draggy marks, we won't stress, we'll just try and fix them. And we don't want any pooling pigment anywhere. Now I just tapped this into my water, and I'm going to scrape a little bit off into my little well here so that I can have another circle, but it's going to be a little lighter because I put it in the water. And then again, I'm going to allow this first circle to touch, well, actually both circles. This third circle is touching the first and the second. That's what I was trying to say, but man, it sure didn't come out like that. Okay, let's take our pink. I feel like I must have pink in here somewhere. Well, we're just going to make a pink circle. And then we're going to continue. Now, again, if your bristles are really, I'm trying to think of what the word is, loaded up, fat, you want to scrape off some of that excess water. Okay, and now can you see they're not as plump. That's the word I think I was looking for. They're skinnier. So I'm gonna paint another circle. And these are relatively watery. They're not super pigmented, but that's actually, we want that. We don't want super dark areas, okay? And sometimes, so again, I like to make sure that things are touching and intermingling. Not everything intermingles, by the way, and a lot of it comes down to timing. This exercise also will help you understand the timing better or practice the timing. So now I've got another pink. This time I am, well, we're just going to use that one. This time it's Opus, which many of you said was one of your favorite colors. I do enjoy myself some Opus. I've put it in multiple palettes because it's just that good. It also is really fun to mix with. Okay, so there we go. And again, I'm going to dip this into my water. All I did was dip it in. Now, can you see how plump my, I'm trying to bring this up close. I just got a drip on myself, but this is a really juicy brush. So I'm going to scrape a little bit off on the side. If you don't like scraping, or maybe you don't have a mixing palette like this, you can touch the bristles to the edge of your paper towel to take off some of that paint. And then we're going to go up here and paint a lighter pink circle. And again, allow things to mix as needed. All right, I'll clean my brush off of that and dip into my slightly darker pink, which we're going to mix into here. And this is definitely going to be a nice dark color, which is great. That looks good. Dipping it into my water, scraping off the edge like so, and then I'm going to paint in another circle. You can see not all my circles are the same size. That's fine. I should actually vary the size a little bit more because it's not critical. This has just a little bit of extra pigment, so maybe I'll touch that to my my paper towel, and that will kind of get the excess off. So that's good. So when you guys are talking about having a little bit trouble with too much water, this is a really good exercise to check how much water you're using. We'll continue down the line with some of our bright violet. This is such a fun color as well. And today on my walk, I saw, it's not quite this color, but I saw this really pretty bluish, purplish colored flower. Oh, loved it. Okay, so again, I dipped this in the water, scraping off the excess, and we'll paint another lighter one. Ooh, that's really light. I think I took off more pigment than I thought, but that's all right. I think it's fun to have these really light colored ones for fun. Oh, thank you so much. Is that Maria? Oh, you are the best. I appreciate you so much. Okay, next up we've got lavender. This is kind of an opaque color, and so we're gonna put this in here. I love mixing lavender with other colors. It's very fun. Now this over here is dry, I know, so I'm not worried about it mixing. So we'll just kind of stick that right there, and then we're gonna dip into the water, scrape off the excess so we don't have too much. So do you see, I really am working on a habit of dipping into the water to get rid of some of that excess, to help me control my water. You can, you're not seeing this because it's off screen, but one of the things I'm doing over here is I'm literally scraping off that excess water and letting it drip back into my water container so that I'm able to control. Oh, I really appreciate you so much, Maria. Thank you. I'm so glad you are inspired by all of this. That makes me very happy. Okay, now I've got that really beautiful Earth Shine violet. Oh, so gorgeous. And look, I already love how the color is bleeding from our lavender. That is wonderful. Dipping that in, scraping off the excess, and we'll put another circle right here and let things bleed. Now I'm not overlapping the circles, I'm just letting them touch. So no overlapping, just touching. That sounds like a dirty paint story. Okay, now I've got my ultramarine. And we'll go right here. Well, Maria, there is still time, and I actually have some plans for kind of continuing some of the things that we've been working on, because I feel like there just hasn't been enough time for all the stuff that I had slated, because you know me, I always do plan too much. So I have a couple of fun announcements coming up, so might be all right if you still want a box. Okay, so there we go. There's another one. Isn't this pretty, by the way? I love how this is coming together. Next up, we're going to do our Verditer, the color we stressed out about pronouncing yesterday. Verditer. That's the Swedish chef color, right? Beth Ann says Earthshine is gorgeous, and I would have to agree with you, Beth Ann. You are correct. Okay, so this color is already pretty light, and then when you water it down, it's still pretty light. All right, so we've got that one. Then we're going to do cerulean, because we can, and cerulean is beautiful, and this is going to be a nice, rich, darker or more intense color. But I thought that it would actually bleed more than it seems to, so that's okay. I really thought I had a, oh yeah, this is cerulean. I was going to say, I thought I had a spot for cerulean here, but can you get another paint palette? Possibly. The answer today is no, but in the future, maybe. The paint palettes I have left are for people with getting the box of supplies, which I've been having people order every day, so I've continued to ship them. But the ones I have left are earmarked for people who are getting the supplies so that they're able to have the palette as well. And it does take a while for me to fill them and for them to dry enough to ship. So that is a future possibility, yes. I do have, I believe I have, in my stencil store, I have at least my Fall in Love with Watercolor palette is in there, I'm pretty sure. I have a few of those ready to go. Okay, so we've got our cobalt green, always fun. And I'm trying to hold out a little bit of space so we can throw in a nice green. So we'll do a leaf green, which is always fun. Now, many of these are already dry, but as we finish this up, we're going to, and look at that one's really spreading. As we finish this up, Shelly says, how do we go about signing up for these boxes? You can go in the description of this video, and there is a link to get a box or a PDF, and that will give you lifetime access plus all the bonus content. And I do have quite a lot of bonus content for you. Like, there's been one lesson every day, but I'm not done yet, so there's going to be more than that. And also, can we just talk? This green really pushes into the other pigments quite a bit, which is really fun. I was fascinated to see some of these colors did not push much. Some of them did, but some of them didn't. And so it's really interesting to see where things spread and where things don't spread. So I really like, you know, just kind of experimenting with that. And it's a great way to kind of get your brush warmed up and get your hands feeling back into things. So this was a good lesson in water control. So when we talk about water control, you really have to, and I don't want to say think or concentrate too hard, like it's painful. It's not like we're doing calculus. We're just paying attention to what's happening so that we learn from our experiments and learn from our warm-ups, because I really think that is valuable. Okay, so we'll set this aside to dry completely, and we're going to come back and have fun with it. But in the meantime, let's dive into a really fun thing, which is a stencil. So you received 2 stencils in your box. These are only available through the event. And this is a fun stencil that actually went through a couple of different versions. I was looking for, I have another one that I painted and I can't find it. It was actually the first version of this stencil. It was much larger. My original was kind of big, and so I asked, oh, here, I found it. I knew it was around here somewhere. This was the original one, so it's a lot bigger. But I had my husband shrink this down so that it would fit on a card front, which I thought was a great, kind of a great compromise. By the way, let's talk about this one. This one I painted before I'd finalized my palette, so there's a color I used that, actually 2 colors I used that didn't end up in the final version. But this is our Burke's Parrot Pink, because obviously. And then this is a color called Purple Gray or Gray Purple. I've used it in a palette before, for those of you who've been with me. And then this is like Permanent Violet, I think is the name, or Da Vinci Violet. It's just a purple. I changed out this color for that Earthshine Violet, and then I just removed this color because I had too many colors. So yeah, really fun. And this is something you can do a lot of different things with. So I'm going to paint a different version of this. Now I took one of, I believe this is, let's double check. I mentioned yesterday cutting some paper to 4 by 5 1/4 so that you can make cards out of these really easily. I love having that size paper just ready to go. So what you want to do with this is you're going to set it down on here. If it helps, stick it down with some tape. And that will like hold things into place for you in case you're worried about it moving. I'm generally, I have found myself, this is just Scotch tape, pretty good at not having things move on me, so that's nice. Now, as I mentioned, there's lots of different things you can do with this stencil, or different ways you can do this, but we're going to just kind of do the basic way, which is to trace it. I love using my special 6H pencil versus a number 2 because this is a much lighter, color, or, you know, it traces lighter. Gosh, I can't even say the words. And what's nice about that is, and first of all, I'm using a pretty light touch on this. I'm not pressing very hard. I don't want to dent my paper. So if you're one of those, you know, you really press hard or you really want to see it, first of all, remember that this lead is going to come out lighter than a regular pencil. And that's on purpose. And then second of all, we don't necessarily want the lines to show at the end of our painting. So that's why we're being kind of delicate with this. Now, I will say, of all of the stencils I do offer, this one's a little tricky because you kind of have to go around some stuff to do it. But there we go. We just traced it. So I just traced out all of the areas. The center you can either leave or trace. And then I'm going to remove this. And here's what we're left with. So it's a very geometric-y type of pattern, which is a lot of fun, I think. And it's also very reminiscent of, like, what do they call that? Mid-century, I guess mid-century, like the 60s and 70s. Is that the word for that? Mid-century style? Style, that's the word. I'm going with it. Okay, now I've got a really fun sample I will also show you of this, but I'm going to do this in maybe some blues because I feel like I've not done enough with blues. So let's start with that fabulous cerulean. And we've been practicing our water control on our water control exercise already today. So we're going to be real good with this. And so a couple things. You can do a lot of mid-century modern. Thank you, Robin. You can do a lot of different things with this. First of all, there's a gap between, you know, each of the petals on here, which you can kind of fill in if you wanted. So like I could take my pencil and just sort of continue the design if I wanted, or I can leave it blank. Maybe I will fill it in and then I'll show you my example where I did not. So all I'm literally doing is kind of making a V to fill this in. This part is not as critical because it's where the stem meets, but there we go. Okay, so let's paint over this. Flower power or mod, yes. All of those descriptors I love. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to have the petals, the outside of these petals, be this cerulean blue, and then the inside will be a different color. And this is really fun to play with in terms of colors. So if you wanted to practice some color combinations off on your scrap paper, those little pieces you had left over from cutting your paper down, you could absolutely do that. And it's really fun to see all of the possible color combinations you can come up with. Or you can experiment right on here, and that's always fun. But I'm really enjoying this process. It's very relaxing to paint stencils. This one's pretty simple. Our other stencil is basically this flower design in a background. And that is a really fun stencil as well, which you'll see in a bonus lesson. And it's a little bit more involved. That's why I chose not to do it in the live, because it's a little bit more involved. It takes longer to paint that one. And I didn't want to take the whole night up with doing one stencil. But somebody the other night said they enjoy watching me paint. And if you do, Stencil Club might be right up your alley, because there's a lot of watching Dina paint. And I encourage you to always paint right along with me. So if you enjoy watching me, you absolutely can. But if you enjoy watching me and then painting with me, you can do that as well. So it's a lot of fun. I also find this to be a lot like coloring. When I was a kid, I loved to color. I loved trying to figure out how to shade with my crayons and my pencils. When I was in college, I majored in biology, and my favorite part of biology was lab and drawing diagrams with my colored pencils, because I loved that I could combine my artistic side with my science side. And actually, my high school biology teacher, I don't think I've ever told anybody this, she was like a combination of art and science. And I was so excited when I graduated college to go back and tell her that I became a biology teacher. And she was teaching art, and I was just like, oh. But she switched it up because she could, and she enjoyed that. She could do both. And so I also enjoyed kind of feeding my artistic side with science. So anyway, there you go. That's kind of a fun little story. Oh, isn't that fun? By the way, I feel like I could do a bunch of these, on a bigger background and just fill out the flowers. Ooh, that maybe could be a new stencil. Okay, so we're gonna let that dry for a second. I'm gonna work on my leaves, and we'll go with our nice light leafy green, because that's a great, great color, and it's nice and vibrant and fun. I'm gonna not quite do the connector to this flower yet because I don't want it to bleed. Because as we saw in our practice, our warm-up exercise, is leaf green pushed way into those other circles. So now I know that that is a quality of this particular pigment, is that it's going to push into other colors, or at least the colors that were near it on our little exercise, which, by the way, I believe one of them was this cerulean blue. So see, we learned something. It's all about observation. See, can't you tell I was a biology teacher? Observing things. That is totally a biology thing. Yeah, I have a funny story about that. So when my husband was in grad school, I taught high school biology in California, and where teachers were desperately, desperately needed. This was in the very late 90s. And then when we moved to Iowa, they told me someone would have to die or retire for me to get a job in teaching. That's literally what they told me. And so I was like, oh. So naturally I got pregnant. And I kind of had a part-time teaching job in a very small school district for one school year. And it was very interesting. One of my students was pregnant with me. That was an interesting experience, I'll just say. Anyway, so I never ended up teaching when I moved into Iowa. I got pregnant, and then I did, I wanted to stay home with my kids, and my Stampin' Up then kind of took off too. I thought I'd have to quit Stampin' Up when we moved here. I did start when we lived in California. So anyway, that's a fun little story. You learn all kinds of interesting things when you're talking through your watercoloring. Dina, you had a question from Gifting a Box. Gifting a Box. Let's see. If I want to get a box shipped as a gift, can I do that? Oh, absolutely. Gosh, and what a gift that would be. Whew. Yes, you absolutely can ship a box as a gift. I would say if you purchase it, drop me an email telling me, or like reply to the confirmation email with that information. I would even wrap it up for you. We are a one-stop shop for such services. Okay, now the center of this I could do in either, I'll let you guys choose. Should we do for the center ultramarine, which is that darker blue, this color, or should we do our cobalt green, which is kind of like Coastal Cabana? So you let me know in the comments. Thank you for that. Are your Stencil Club videos live, and when are they? No, they're not live. They're all on the Teachable website. So you can go back and see them all. Watch and rewatch as many times as you'd like. And speaking of that, Sandy, I know you'd asked me about the Stencil Club stencils that you're missing. Let me know which ones you want. You can just go through and look at them. This is ultramarine, not cobalt. Oh, cobalt green, of course. What am I saying? Well, now it's even. It's ultramarine, ultramarine, cobalt, cobalt. So tell me. I was thinking of cobalt blue, which actually is somewhat similar to ultramarine, but a little different. Know your own names, Dina. Goodness. Ooh, Mary broke the tie with saying cobalt green. Oh, and Maria says cobalt. So, okay, there it is. We'll do cobalt. That's a good choice. Either one would be great. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get me some cobalt green. So good. And I'm just going to go ahead. Now I've got 2 rungs on here. So honestly, I could do both colors, but I think I'm going to do one color in the center, and then we're going to have fun with this. Now I waited until the edges of this were dry so that nothing would bleed in places we did not want it to bleed. And then the other thing, since we're painting here, I'm going to also mention that I do have several courses on my Teachable site that you can get. There's the fall watercolor retreat from last year, and you might think, well, that was last year. Oh my gosh, you guys, it was amazing. There's a lot of stuff that we did that's really cool, and that is a definite no previous experience needed at all. It was a really great event, and you can still attend. I don't have a supply box left for that one, but I will have some watercolor palettes from that palette available. It was pretty awesome. And then I also have a fall retreat coming up this year, which I will talk about, and that's going to be a lot of fun. Sandy says, is that the live retreat? So I had a retreat last fall called the Fall 2025 Watercolor Retreat. It's on the Teachable site. You can, I believe you can get it. If not, let me know and I can make that happen for you. And then I also have a fall retreat coming up this fall in September and October. And I will talk a little bit about that one tomorrow. So yeah. Shelly says, I wish I was artistic. I would love to learn how to paint. Shelly, you don't have to be artistic at all. That's the beauty of this. That's why you have me. Okay, so there we go. That was literally coloring. We're going to let this dry. So we're going to come back to this in a little bit. But I'm going to show you another version, and you're going to laugh a little bit about this because it's on a scrap paper, kind of. This is one I did. This is with my Burke's Parrot Pink. And then this center area is with my Bright Violet. So I thought this turned out really nice as well. So that was a fun one. But we'll come back and make this fancy a little later on. Okay, speaking of coming back to things, I think this is dry. Oh, not quite. So never mind. All right. But you know what is dry? The papers I painted last night. So last night during our live number 3, I painted 3 sheets of my Fluid 100 watercolor paper. I did one in pinks, reddish, and orangey colors. I did one in our green, and then I did this one in like pinks, purplies, and blues, and then I added salt, and look at this. Oh my gosh. How amazing is this? I love how this one came out. Now the salt is still on here, so what I want to do is kind of scrape it off, and you can just take like a ruler or something to scrape the salt off. Some of the salt dissolved. If you recall, I said I had some areas that were probably a little too wet. And when it dissolves, it kind of leaves a little polka dotty dot, which I don't love. I prefer it over here where it doesn't do that as much. But at any rate, I love how these turned out. I thought they were so cool. And yes, the colors are very vibrant, which is what I love about painting, is you definitely can get more and less vibrant colors. Now, what I wanted to do with these, I didn't do this ahead of time because I really wanted you to see what these looked like before I took over, is I've got my dies. This is from the Heirloom Blooms set of dies, and we are going to die cut a bunch of these flowers. We also have some centers and some leaves. And what's fun about this set of dies is that you can do them both like on the watercolored paper, and then we can layer these up together. You can also do them on plain paper, and I'll show you what I mean by that. So we're just going to run this through our die cutting machine to get some die cut pieces, and then we're going to assemble them. Okay, so this is again one I have sorry, I just realized I stacked up some stuff on my die cutting machine thinking I wouldn't be using it. Well, wasn't that wrong? Okay. And what I love is the colors aren't solid, so that's kind of fun. Okay. So these look super fun, don't they? And you can get quite a large number of them from one of these papers. So just be patient with me for just a moment while I die cut all these really quick, and then we'll assemble some flowers. The other thing I wanted to tell you is that you can also die cut the shapes out of just plain watercolor paper. And I'm kind of varying, like I don't want all the same die cuts in the same area. I want to mix them up a little bit so that I've got different options for myself. Like for instance, right here, these, I don't know if you can see that, maybe I'm out of screen a little. These little circles are in this kind of yellow orangey area. Now I'm going to bring them over here to this pinky reddish area. And let's see if we can get this one. Nope, and that's fine. So I'll run that through again, and then we'll have all these die cut pieces. By the way, we have some flowers we're going to paint tonight too, so I'm excited about that. We painted, I feel like we painted a few yesterday. I've got a bonus lesson coming up with a bunch of, or I shouldn't say a bunch, but with some more flowers. And I think you will enjoy that. A reminder, you get access to all the bonus lessons when you purchase the PDF or the box of supplies. And of course, the box of supplies is fabulous because you will make your album full of all of the things that we've created this week, which is just going to be so much fun. And this is the kind of thing where I also keep like a folder sort of all of my die cut pieces. Or I'm sorry, not my die cut pieces, my backgrounds, but my painted backgrounds. And the reason is because then I can just you know, if I need a certain color. And I save, like, okay, so we've cut a lot of that paper, right? We've gotten a whole bunch of flowers, but I can still save this for something in the future and enjoy working with it later on. Okay, now let's crank out some leaves, and I'm also gonna take these scraps and do maybe, is that smallest flower gonna fit on here? Oh, I just dropped it. Oh my gosh, my husband, I mentioned, is out of town for work this weekend. My dogs miss him. He's the one in charge here at the house of giving out snacks in a timely fashion. I don't. So, of course, I am not as well loved in these parts as my husband. So I have to giggle because they are just like, you're bad at this. Oh, look at that. So fun. Okay. Let's see. Sandy, I don't think, by the way, that I have all my Stencil Club stencils in my stencil store. If something is part of Stencil Club, it's listed as such. If it is not something that was in Stencil Club, it just won't say Stencil Club. In the stencil store, that is. Ooh, Robin says jingle in July. Wow. I know, right? We even said, we're like, we did a good job. Like, we were pretty proud of that, right? Okay, I'll just do a few more of these and then we'll put these together because you don't need to watch me die cut all night long. That's not what we're here for. That's not the most exciting part of this. Ooh, but what I did want to tell you is you can do like centers and some of these smaller flowers in, these are just like the leftover pieces from trimming my cardstock out. And sometimes that's fun. I'm just gonna rip this to make it go a little better. But I like doing that so that I have kind of some contrast. I will tell you, Robin, I did not like Christmas in July. It is not my favorite. That was my online class with Barb and Kelly. So I had to laugh. Kelly goes, she was telling Barb and I tonight that she was going to do her live tomorrow. And then she goes, I thought Haley had internet, but she doesn't. Like, and Kelly bought more internet with her phone plan. And she's already burned through it. And I go, yeah, because you're Snapchatting. You're just like an irresponsible teenager. I remember when my kids, we switched phone plans and it wasn't unlimited. And my kids like went crazy with the internet. And we used up all our data like in the first day of the month or something. And it was because of stupid Snapchat. Anyway, all right. Now, what I love doing with this is taking just a piece, whether it's this piece of watercolor paper or not, and then taking these beautiful colored pieces. And all we did, you guys, was just paint some colors on here. And then you can kind of decorate however you want. And so here's where I like using one of those white pieces. And then maybe you've got a second flower on here, and then you just add a sentiment. Okay, let's mix up another one. I'm not going to make these into cards, but I will post the finished, I'll finish the cards, complete them, and then post them in the bonus section for today so that you can you know, see some ideas with this. Maybe not that one. Maybe, do we have a bigger? That's a bigger one. Well, that's the same flower I just used. How about this one? So what if I took this one and mixed it up with this one, and then put that one in the center? So much fun. And this. Okay, so again, you don't have to, this is watercoloring without skill. All you did was make that background yesterday, which was super easy and fun. And then we can take and make these beautiful little compositions of our die cut pieces. Let's just do one more. And this is just kind of a mix and match situation, which is fun and easy. Now, of course, you know me, I love the dimensions, so give them a wiggle. And you've got all that fun kind of dimension in there. There's not enough contrast in that one for me. And do I have a white center? Like that is super fun. Like that. Like that. And you know, add a sentiment down here. So look at how cute and fun these are. Of course, I'll also do our other piece. I just didn't want to take the time to die cut these, but I was so excited to show you how this turned out, because we did, of course, the salt on this last night. So anyway, just play with die cutting the pieces in the different areas. And sometimes when I do this, I'm like, okay, well, now I need to do a sheet of yellow. So I will also show you, this is so funny because I was looking for this the other day and couldn't find it. It was under something, shocker. These are all sheets that I created with the colors in our palette. This is one that turned out a little lighter than I was hoping, but it was okay. Here's another beauty, another green one, but this one was kind of lighter overall than this one. I had more darker areas on here. So, you know, again, that's kind of fun. Kind of a combination of colors. Ooh, purples and blues, pinks and oranges. You can never go wrong with pink and orange. It's just always a good idea. So much so that I had to do it twice. And then I've got kind of yellow, orangey red. So anyway, these are all just pieces that I have ready to go, can die cut anytime. Somebody mentioned die cutting my $1 million stamp set, and I would agree that is a great idea to do. In fact, that makes me want to pull out my $1 million set and do it. So we'll play with that. But I just thought these would be really fun. Then, of course, the leftover pieces, I'm just going to take and put in like a Ziploc bag or a clear envelope so that you can come back to these at a later date and create with them. And you can see how nice it is to have that contrast of the white in some of these. I just like the, you know, mixing it up and having some options for creating with these. Aren't these super cute? So there you go. My $1 million set, Sandy, was called Pretty Perennials. And it came out in about 2020. Gosh, has it really been that long? Oh! So long ago. Okay, so that was fun, right? Next up, just gotta find my pieces here. What is, oh yes. Okay, so yesterday, now here, who's saying, no, not Sandy. Somebody was saying they didn't have, Shelly. Okay, Shelly, we are gonna make a flower I really believe you can do with zero skill. And this is just kind of a generic flower, but I think it's really fun. And you don't have to be good. Marsha, am I close to 2? Actually, I hit 2 million a couple of years ago. They're coming a lot less. COVID was real good to me. They're coming a lot less quickly at this point. I am at 2.6 million and change, actually. So yeah. It's been a journey, hasn't it? And some of you have been with me for a really, 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 really long time. Like Beth Ann, what did you say? Is it your 10-year anniversary coming up? Oh my gosh. Or 9 years? That's what you said, wasn't it? I still am kind of geeking out about that. It feels like it's only been a short time, but how fun. Okay, so this is a really fun technique. We're going to paint some more flowers on our little pieces here. No, you don't get another stamp set, mainly because a lot of people are coming up. I was the 31st $1 million salesperson. There have been, I think, over 100 now. And I was the 14th $2 million person. And there's definitely not been that many $3 million people. So it's going to be a while before I hit 3 million, but just slow and steady. 9. It was Beth Ann. That blows my mind. Anyway, okay, back to this. So we are going to just paint some fun little flowers. I'm going to go into my bright violet. Okay, now I know, here we go. I was going to say, I know I have a spot for this on my palette. And I am going to just take and I'm going to wiggle my brush. Okay, so I'm going to set it down like this. This is my number 8 round, and I'm going to kind of wiggle and turn my paper slightly. I want sort of a wedgie shaped petal. Okay, so that was pretty easy, right? We're going to dip it into water and try it again. Actually want a little bit bigger one. So I'm going to get a little more paint on here. Really get it on in my bristles. This is when you definitely want your bristles saturated for. And I'm holding this very parallel to my paper. And I'm gonna wiggle it a little bit more so that my petal is bigger on this one. Okay. So that is just, I'm gonna kind of do that and that. And look at how fun that is. So easy. Love this. Okay, then I'm going to bring down, so I'm gonna do that little edge and bring it down, kind of curving it. Now notice I touched the wet paint and it's kind of bleeding. I'm gonna let that go for now because it's not going too crazy. But this one I'm being careful not to touch it, and then we're gonna bring it down like that. Okay. Deborah, you did meet me. That actually wasn't my first retreat. It was my first hotel retreat, like that kind of thing. I had done them before, but not in a hotel. But yes, that was a lot of fun. Oh my gosh. I loved that event. That was just the best. Okay, so how fun is that? Let's try that again. Beth Ann says, I learned that I am not getting enough paint on your brush. You know, a lot of people struggle with understanding what the right amount is. And one thing, when I see people in person, I often see that they are very dainty about the whole thing. And you kind of got to get in there. Let's do this in red. So you can see I'm really getting a good amount of paint on my brush. And then I'm taking it to my mixing palette, which I don't have a red slot, so we're just going to take over this right here. I so meant to clean this out before tonight, just so I had some clean areas to work in, but we're good. And then we're going to do this again. I'm going to start with my bigger one. And I'm really kind of going back and forth, and I feel like there's not enough, so I'm dipping this in my water. I'm really picking up that pigment and water mixture. And then I am just kind of going back and forth to create this. And someone said this looks like a poppy. Yes, that is kind of the intent, though this is generally speaking not necessarily a specific flower per se. Now, let's pick up some orange and kind of do the same thing over here so that there's like two different colors. And there's probably still some red in my brush, which is kind of fun. So there we go. Oh, isn't that pretty? And I think the thing, I know, especially as it compares to watercolor, stamping, our ink pads aren't super expensive, right? I mean, they're plenty expensive, but they're not like super expensive, but the paint is. Like the paint is the expensive part of this, where the ink is not the expensive part of stamping. It's the bundles, right? So we probably look at the paint supplies in a different way, economically speaking. So we're like, oh, I want to save my paint, you know, don't waste the paint. But honestly, I will tell you, I think it's okay. I'm giving you license to use that paint, because if, first of all, if you don't, then it's just sitting there, nobody's enjoying it. That's no fun. But also, if you're afraid to use it, you're not going to use it well, if that makes sense, right? I'm going to put some leaves on this one. I haven't really put leaves on any of these. Sometimes I like just having a stem. Sometimes I like putting bigger leaves with this. I did more a lighter green on these because I just think they're bright and cheerful. How fun is that? I mean, it's just so fun. So we did this one and we did this one, and then I have another one here I'll show you. This was with my pink. Oh, I just loved how that came out. That's with the pink peony pink. So aren't these fun? No real skill needed. It kind of reminds me of those, I think we did it on our very first night, where we just kind of did splotches. And tomorrow night, we're going to do some more of this, like, no skill needed type flowers. And I can't wait for you to see what we're going to do tomorrow, because it's going to be a lot of fun. Okay, so this is another one. Practice, 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 practice. Put these in your album. Here's another one I did. This time I dabbed a little paint at the base of these. So it was like this, but then I put in some dark pink in there, and I thought that was kind of fun. Now, have we done an actual tulip? I feel like maybe we haven't yet, have we? Let me look. Let me look in my album of goodness. No, we have not done a tulip. All right, so let's do an actual tulip. I feel like this is like a fake tulip. So this is not a fake tulip, but like a, oh, what's the word? I can never think of the word I want. That's because we're late today, and oh my gosh, when my husband's gone, I never sleep that well, and let's just say I have not slept great since he's been gone. So I'm hoping to catch up on a little sleep this weekend. Anyway, we're gonna do a tulip. There's lots of ways you can do tulips. Let's just start. Well, actually, you know what? I'm gonna pull out a sheet, and we're gonna practice some brush strokes. I feel like that's helpful. Okay, so I've got a 4x6. Let's practice some tulip specific brush strokes. Now, first off, I'm using a filbert, but you can use whatever brush you're comfortable with. Abstract. Thank you, Marianne. That is exactly the word I was looking for. So we're going to use a filbert brush for tulips because I feel like that helps us get the nice round shape of a tulip. But you can truly do it with any brush, a round, a flat, whatever floats your boat. Okay, so I'm going to take and use, well, I'll use this yellow. No, I want orange. It's going to show up on the camera a little better. I haven't been using my lemon yellow as much as I'd want because I feel like it doesn't show up very well for you. Okay, so we have, these are filbert brush strokes for petals. So we have kind of that one that gives us more of like a daisy. that was going on the side of the filbert brush. We're going to flatten the brush out. Okay, and that is going to give us a bigger one, and we can do multiples. Okay, so that right there is a kind of a nice little petal. Sort of tulipy, but not totally. Now I'm going to kind of do at an angle, so sort of combination between those two. And I'm going to kind of press, and I'm going to do multiples, and that gives me kind of that tulip shape right there. It also works for a poppy. There's a lot of different flowers this could work for. Okay, so those are 3 different ways to make a petal with a filbert brush. So that's what I'll call this, is filbert petals with filbert brushes. So let's kind of work on that a little bit. I'm going to, once again, and this also can come down a little bit to your personal preference. So if you like painting flowers in one way versus the other, go for it. Go with what works for you. Okay, so I'm gonna do a tulip now, which is gonna be kind of a combination of this one and this one, or this one and this one. It doesn't really matter. So a tulip can sometimes have, you know, that first little petal that's kind of off on its own, maybe separating a little bit. And then look at how I'm kind of pulling all of these down. And then maybe another one over here. That looks like a tulip. And I'm trying to kind of keep it to the bottom edge, so it's all kind of in the same area, and round it off a little bit. Brenda's on here, and it made me think of something I taught her, which was flat bottom girls for the tulips. Wasn't that you, Brenda? That was in a lesson from something. I can't remember. So, oh, I just love the look of that. Oh my gosh, you're waiting for a concert to start. That's fun. And you're joining us. Wow, I feel pretty special. Okay, so let's do that again. I'm going to do that one kind of skinny one. And you can do this at the end too. You can start with the bigger petal and then add the one, but I don't know. That's just how I'm doing it tonight. I've done it both ways. Okay, so I'm going to get my bristles nice and painty, and then I'm going to do another one. Not too watery. The more watery your brush is, the less control you have. And then I'm going to kind of curve that down, and then of course we'd bring a stem down. Okay, and sometimes I kind of have to round off the bottom as needed, but there you go. Those are good looking tulips, right? So let's take and translate this, and I'm going to save this because we'll probably come back to it. Let's translate that into one of our flower cards, right? So this time I'll try and show you where I do the middle first and then add the skinny ones on the other side, because that's a good one, a good skill to practice. Okay, so I'm kind of doing that. And then I'm going to add one here and one over here. Very nice. And maybe I don't like the top look of this a little bit, so I'm going to kind of work with it. And I like that a little better. Now, one thing we haven't done with this yet is add some additional color. Now, often I am a big proponent of simply, you know, dabbing a little color in at the base so that it spreads out a little bit. Like I showed you an example of that with our more abstract one. And of course I can't find that one right now. Oh, here it is. Like this. But sometimes it doesn't spread even and whatnot. Another way you can add color, and this one takes a little bravery and a little practice. So we're going to take a little darker orange shade. Okay, and we're just going to draw that in very lightly. This is my number 1 brush. Okay, and I'm just adding that in, and it's going to bleed and blend a little bit. That's a little too stripey for me. I probably could have gotten rid of maybe a little bit of these, but okay. If you don't like them, if they are too stripey for you, soften them up with your brush. I'm not going to worry too much about it because it's not horrible. Okay, then let's add a stem. Now, a tulip typically has a pretty solid stem, so I'm making that a little thicker than I normally would. And they also have, that might have been too thick, but that's okay. That's okay. They also have a pretty thick, tall, long leaf. Okay, that goes with it. I'm just gonna have that one kind of overlap a little bit, because why not? And that one. I feel a little bit like my stem was too thick for the size of my tulip, but you get the idea. Not too bad. Not the greatest. Let's try another one. See, not all of my flowers are masterpieces, so I just want you to be aware that it does take some practice. And that's why we do these practice sheets, and that's why we have our album, so we can see the progress that's happening. Okay, so let's come back. I'm going to try a little darker shade for my main color of my tulip. And let's make this one a little bit bigger. Okay, doing my sides. Look at that, that's not bad. I'm going to take my thin, my number 1. I'm going to pick up a little darker shade in this. I'm actually going to mix it with the orange I was just using. And you know, there's those beautiful tulips that have the kind of the veining, I guess, in them. Very pretty. Okay, and then we'll add the stem. All right, not quite as thick. Oh, I'm liking that ratio a little better. And then we'll do our great big leaves. Now, tulips are so easy to practice because they're not that complicated. And if you don't love them, try them again. Okay, now I'm going to give you another option for doing a tulip that I think you might enjoy. This one, we're going to need to let dry. Okay, so I'm going to come back in maybe with, well, we could do kind of a light red, sort of mixing a little orange in with my red to get a deeper orange shade. And actually want a lighter orange, so I'm going to water that down. I dip that in water, and I'm kind of mixing it up. I'm going to add one more bit of water to this, and we're going to do another one. This one's going to be watery. Notice I just tapped off that excess water because I knew it was going to be too much. Okay. So there we go. Now I'm going to let this dry like this, okay? It's okay if, in this case, now before when we were doing our circles, we wanted to get rid of that excess water, but I'm okay with there being a little bit of excess water here. It's not drippy, but it's a little excess, but it's at the base, it's fine. Okay, we need to let that dry. Maybe we'll do one more so we can have another smaller tulip. Now I'm only doing one petal at this time, and you'll see why here in a little bit. We're going to let that dry completely. Actually, we could probably even help it dry. Somebody asked, I think the other night, I remember seeing the comment, but I was talking about something else. If I like using my heat tool to dry things, and generally I don't. I would prefer to let things dry naturally because the I feel like they don't dry the same. I also feel like my heat tool warps the paper as well. And that is one of the reasons I don't like to make them dry. Okay. Going back, so I had a watery down version. I'm going to come back into the not as watered down version. And I'm going to come back and we're going to go over the top of this. And I'm going to go a little lower from the top and do another petal over there. And look what just happened. That added like a three-dimensional look to our tulip, didn't it? So pretty. Now the key to this is letting that first layer dry completely. Okay, and we'll do the same thing to this one. We're gonna kind of go up with that petal and do a couple down here and then one more over here. And now we have these gorgeous kind of added dimension tulips. Okay, we're going to wait for those to dry as well, and then we'll finish them off. This is really fun. Now I will tell you, before you will be successful at this, you need to be really successful with these. So if you're not comfortable with building up your tulip with the individual petal shapes, don't attempt this because you'll just get frustrated. Keep practicing this. I again want to remind you that it takes pages of this to get to the flowers that you want. So keep practicing those brush strokes so that you can get to a point where you're happy with them, and then you'll be much more successful to get to this point. It doesn't happen overnight, but if you can be persistent, stick with it, the results will definitely be worth it. Okay, so I'm going to pull down another stem, trying to make this a little bigger. Like that. Oh, I just love these. Now look what's happening here. I got a little bleeding and I'm kind of not super thrilled about it, but I'm afraid that if I mess with it, it's going to affect things. So I'm just going to let that one go. But I'm also going to hold it this way to hopefully, hopefully gravity will help me out a little here, but it may not. And remember, this darn green is, we learned in our very first little exercise that it definitely likes to push into other colors. It's just a property of that pigment. And it's not the worst thing in the world. You know, watercolor does do that and it's okay. But man, isn't that pretty? I don't like the bleeding so much, but I sure do like the tulips that we painted here. So tulips have those nice broad leaves, but oh, so pretty. So pretty. Okay. So again, I'm not super happy with that one. It's just not the right dimensions. All right, now that we learned that technique, let's take and apply it to another one of my favorite flowers, and that is a poppy. There's lots of ways you can approach a poppy, but this is going to be kind of fun. Let's see. Kathy asks, how do I get the ridges on tulip top brush? Tulip top with brush. Are you talking about this, or are you talking about just the bumps on the top of this, Kathy? Are you talking about the bumps or the lines? Let me know, and then I can explain. Okay, now a poppy is, like I said, one of my favorite flowers. So beautiful. They do come in quite a variety of colors, shapes, and sizes, and even textures, believe it or not. We're going to go with kind of a basic one. So I'm going to start with some red paint, and I kind of want this to be relatively watery. Okay, so I don't want it to be super wet on my brush, but I want it to be watery in concentration of pigment to water ratio, so more water than pigment. Okay, so I'm just gonna pull down a petal. So Kathy, the bumps are by, see, each brush stroke I'm coming down with is kind of leaving a bump at the top. That's what it is. If you don't want those, you can just go over the top. But if you do want those, you can leave them. It's just each brush stroke is kind of creating that. So once again, I'm going to kind of let that go down. And to help this dry in less than a millennia, we're going to soak up that excess with my thirsty brush. Again, just in case you missed, the thirsty brush is simply cleaning off your brush so there's not pigment in it with clean water, drying off your brush like on a paper towel, and then putting that dry brush so it's thirsty and it'll soak up the excess. Okay, so we're going to let that dry, and while we dry that, I'm going to come back and answer Kathy's question again. Okay, so she wanted to know how I got the bumps at the top of this. Sorry, my finger is band-aidy. So to do that, what I'm doing is I'm taking multiple strokes to fill in that shape. So look at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, this one's really bumpy. I kind of exaggerated it a bit. Okay, so that is really bumpy. You can do less bumps, or you can combine the bumps. So let me show you how to combine bumps. Okay, so I'm going to do this again where I've got one kind of bigger bump, and then another bump, and then another bump, and then another bump. But maybe I don't want quite that many bumps, so let's merge these middle two together with a brush stroke. Boom, now I have 3 bumps. And then I can kind of close that off. I can still have 5 bumps by adding the 2 side petals, but this way it's just a little bit more simplified. Here I basically have 2 bumps, and each bump represents the brush stroke. Okay, so I'll do that again. So here's 1, 2 bumps, a little bit more exaggerated. That one, you know, there's just a little teeny dip like that. But the idea is you want to kind of bring this down to not a point per se, but a little narrower. So I suppose in a word, this is almost like a heart shape, right? And honestly, a tulip can look very much like a heart, you know, like you could have 2 bigger bumps coming together, and that could be your tulip. I mean, that's a tulip, right? Just the same as this, and you could always throw another bump in there. So you can, you know, honestly keep practicing these strokes over and over, because it's fun, and it's fun to see like what you get. So like, there we go, there's that. And then what if I threw another color in, and what would happen there? Like, do the colors merge? Ooh, that's pretty. I'm digging that. It's a little watery, but I'm digging it. So just keep playing, practicing. You'll see. So I'm glad. Thank you for asking that question, Kathy, because I think that was a good one. Okay, so back to our petal. Not quite dry, but we're going to make it, because I still got more to share with you tonight, and the time just goes too quickly. So you want this to be real dry. One way you can tell if it's dry or not is, does it feel cool? And obviously it's not right after you heat it up, but can I feel it? It's still cool. So this means this is still a little wet, moist, if you will. Part of that is sometimes I gotta heat the back side of my paper. That kind of tends to help with the curling also. Sometimes when I pick my paper up, I can feel the it leaves moisture on my tabletop, which is interesting. Okay, so now we've got this nice watery petal. It's totally dry. So we're gonna do another petal pretty similar to this right over the top, and something magical is gonna happen. Okay, and I didn't do a great job of this. I do this all the time. I went down too far. I should have kept it a little bit more in check, but we're gonna make that work. Okay, and I think I must have added more pigment to this because it's not as watery as the first version was. Darn it all. I bet I did when I was showing those others. Here we go. Okay. Now I'm going to soak up all that excess because there's too much here. Now, one thing with this is I don't want to overwork my area. And what I mean by that is I don't want to scrub the paper too much, because what I really want is this area where the two petals have overlapped and we get a darker section. That is just super pretty and fun. Okay, so I'm going to make sure this is nice and watery again. I'm going to do another petal over here. Now, if you know anything about poppies, they actually are comprised of 4 petals. So we've got 3 on there now. And we'll get a 4th on there. And look at that overlap. That one was really good. Okay. Now we got to let that dry. So we're going to just set it up there for a moment. Okay. Let's start one more because we can. I'm going to run out of my little papers here, but that's okay. Start one more, and let's do a different color because we can. I'm going to mix a little bit of magenta and opus. And I'm going to bring it over here. I think actually this is probably magenta and opus. And then I'm going to add a bunch of water to it, so it's definitely watery-er. Okay, so just creating that nice look. And I'm bringing this to not a point, but just a little bit smaller. A little narrower at the bottom. And I'm getting, you can see I thirsty brushed out the excess water that was in here. Okay. We'll help this dry. And then we'll make sure our other ones dry too. I will tell you, having a heat tool handy does help with patience. Not gonna lie. It definitely helps with the patience because a lot of my time painting is waiting for other stuff to dry. Okay, I think this is dry enough that I can do my final petal. Again, really watery red. I could even maybe just put a dash more paint in here. That may have been too much. Okay, and then I'm just going to do one final petal off to the side here. And again, the idea is that they're all kind of coming together at one point. You can see I have a ton of extra water, so we're thirsty brushing all of that out. Okay, now when you have all these petals kind of coming together at the base, we're going to take our really fine #1 brush and we're going to get some black paint in here. We haven't done a ton with black paint yet, but we're going to get there. So I'm going to carefully add black. And I mean, I'm putting just the teeniest bit right there to see what happens. And it does spread a decent amount. I want to put a little bit more, but I don't want it to get a runaway bleed. I just want there to be a little bit of black. I know it's not going to go too far because it's not super wet, and it's only this petal that's wet. The other three are dry. And so there I've just got that little bit of black, which is perfect. Okay, we'll let that sit and dry, and then we'll finish it off. This one, ooh, not dry yet. Now, one of the things I love about this painting in general is that it keeps me off of pointless stuff, such as Instagram or Facebook. Like, you can scroll mindlessly and have nothing for your evening, or you can paint beautiful tulips and poppies, and then you have something to show for your time. Now, on this first one, I kind of ended below this first petal. I want to end at this first petal's base as well. So it does take a little bit of practice to do that. And there, I got it. Okay. But way too much. So we'll pull back all that excess paint. And when I said I want to be careful not to work it too much, what I mean by that is I don't want to scrub out the first line that was there. I still want it to remain intact. And it is. If you brush too hard, sometimes you scrub that out, even if you don't really mean to. Okay. Now I'm going to have this second petal be way off to the side. Okay. Like that. Again, thirsty brushing out the excess so that we can see the overlapping. And by the way, this is a glazing technique some of you probably are aware of. And I definitely need to. I love it. Shelly said, oh my gosh, I just made poppies. I'm so happy for you. Now that I'm getting dangerously close to overworking this one, but I think we're going to be okay. All right. Now I'm also going to take my really small brush and get some black. I do like, again, just swirling it around on something, my palette, my mixing palette, and then putting that little dot on here. Okay. All right, let's come back to this one because it's dry. We're going to let that one sit. And we're going to bring down our stem. I'm using a mixture of my leaf green and granny apple green re-inker for this. And I'm just going to bring down a stem. Okay, and then poppies often have a bud. So for that, I'm going to bring around a little curlicue. Okay, and kind of make it a little bit long. Now here's where I mess up almost every single time I do this. I'm not patient, and I want to add a little red for the bud, but if I wait for the green to dry, it won't go bleh and bleed. If I don't wait, there will be problems. So I'm just going to set this aside again and let it dry. So you can see why these things kind of take steps to occur. This one, I'm just going to do the stem, and then I will do some leaves. And poppies are one of those branchy, leafy guys. So we're just gonna The leaves are actually kind of interesting. So we'll just do a bunch of those little guys. And like that, that's probably all right. And then, oh, the other thing is poppies often have very hairy stems. So I'm literally like just doing really fine lines on those stems because they're kind of hairy. Isn't that crazy? All right, so we're going to leave this poppy. We could add a fourth petal to this, but it's still too wet. So I'm going to set it aside. But let's come back to this. This is pretty nice. We still have, this part of course is not drying slow. So we'll add the little bud to this, but let me show you one that's already done. That's got the bud. I waited for this to dry before I added it completely, and then it looked good. So how nice. This one's a little bit more pigmented, but this one is a little less pigmented. Either is nice. I like the look. Very fun. All right. I'm going to set those all down to dry. We'll finish that bud here at the very end, but let's take a look back at this one. I'm going to kind of curl this to help it flatten out a bit. Okay, so this can be a lot of fun. You can do this with a variety of different tools or a combination of them. But one of the things that I love to do is draw on these. And here again, you can use your skill, you can, of doodling, you can go over the top of these with a variety of different things, or you can leave them blank, or you can do some and not all. You can use paint, you can use pencils, whatever you'd like. You know, I pulled out my pen, but I actually think I'm gonna use pencils on these. Okay, so I've got my Stampin' Up! Pencils. Here's one thing I recommend doing. Have a little scrap paper next to you so you can see what color you're getting. This is balmy blue, but I would say it's gonna look pretty good on my cerulean or verditer blue. So what if I take and just, I'm gonna draw a circle here, and then I'm gonna do spokes on this one. Since we can. So that's kind of fun. All right. Then I'm going to do, what color is this? Blue. So that looks like it's going to go a little bit better with my cerulean. So I'm going to skip over and I'm just going to do this one. And I want a little sharper point. I've got a little pencil sharpener here. Do this into my trash can. That point was just a little bit dull. So let's take, and this is the little design I showed you, I think, on our first night. I'm just doing little teardrops, all kind of meeting in the center. And if you want, you can put a little dot between each teardrop, and that kind of fancies things up a bit. That's pretty. Okay, we've got, this is Flirty Flamingo, so let's test this and see if it's going to look nice with anything. I think that'll go nicely here. I'm going to do the asterisk. I think that's one of the things we did the first night. And then I'm going to put a dot, kind of a big dot on the end of that. So this looks kind of like a, I don't know, groovy. Okay, so that's kind of fun. Let's see, what other colors do we have? Ooh, we've got that Melon Mambo. Oh yeah, that'll work. So I think I'm going to do that over here. I kind of like doing the lighter ones. So what can we do with this? Let's do a circle of circles. So that's fun. Kind of boring. Let's see what else we can do. Let's do a line from each, like in between each of these circles out. And that makes it a little bit more interesting. Now, one thing I will tell you is not every color will work on each of these, but they work pretty good. I'm just scribbling lightly in between each of these sections. Now, why am I doodling all of these? Well, first of all, it's just interesting. It's a good skill to practice, but I also think that each one of these circles individually could be an abstract-y type flower like we did on the first night. So, you know, it's all kinds of fun stuff that you can do. If you don't have watercolor pencils, you can do exactly this type of stuff with paint and your thin brush, your number 1 brush. So that'll work too. Okay, I'm just going to do a circle, and then I'm going to do little scallops around that circle. And then I'm going to do another scallop a little bit bigger from the midpoint of the scallop to the midpoint of the next scallop, like that. And you can do this with your paintbrush too, so there we go. And I can even do another row. Sometimes the scallops get kind of big. Like that. And you could keep going if you wanted. So that was Gorgeous Grape on here. Fun stuff. What other? We need like this. I don't think Cajun Craze is quite the right color. Nope. Maybe Pumpkin Pie. It's a little too orangey as well. Well, or we could do Daffodil. No, that's definitely not right. I think we're going to try orange. Well, wait, what other colors do we have? Real Red. Real Red is anything but red, in my personal opinion. That is like orange. It's like Rocket Red. Do you guys remember that color? You would have to be around a really long time to remember that one. Okay, let's do something fun here. I'm actually going to do sort of a zigzaggy. This is like the bang emoji. But I kind of like it. Here again, I can connect these with lines. And this is very reminiscent of a flower too, an abstraction of it for sure. But, you know, there's flowers that have the veins that go all the way out, which is fun. All right, what other pencil? Ooh, let's see. This is Fresh Freesia. And I'm feeling like this could work over here pretty good. And what should we do here? Maybe we'll do kind of some solid dots. On this one. And then maybe we would have a color where we don't have the right colored pencil to go with it. And in that case, we could use like a black or a white. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say we don't have one that's going to match this quite right. Maybe we do, but I don't know. This is Coastal Cabana. Is it going to work? Oh, darn it, it probably will. But to prove my point, I'm just going to go ahead and use white. So you've got gray, black, and white in the watercolor pencils. So this is kind of a fun way to use one of those. And what I'm going to do is kind of a wavy line. And of course, this is not showing up at all. Ah! Yeah, it's there. Okay. Well, that didn't work out very well now, did it? We're going to go back to our Coastal Cabana pencil and see if this will work. Ooh, and I'm pressing too hard because I was pressing really hard to get that white and it sure didn't want to work. Okay. I just did my wavy line and I'm going to do another wavy line around that. And I'm going to put some dots in the center. And this reminds me of like a stamped image we've had before. So anyway, this is a fun way to decorate those. I think I'm going to stop there. And you can really get some fun looks by playing with these. I don't like how that turned out, but that's all right. You can also do them in your black ink or paint, or your white paint. White paint probably would have, well, for sure would have worked well. For the white, you definitely want to have a nice concentrated pigmented white, not a watery one. So there you go. Lots of good stuff, I think. And this is, again, just such a good, relaxing exercise to work on. Okay, do I have... This should be dry now, yes. So let's do one more of these petals. And again, we want that petal to end right where that black dot is. And sometimes having that black dot there kind of helps you aim a little better for it. I'm getting rid of the excess so that I can see that layer, and that looks pretty good. Okay, now there's lots of different ways to paint poppies. That's certainly not the only way, but this is kind of fun. One thing, oh, I meant to do this but didn't really do very well, is I was going to show you how you can, I think it was Kathy that asked us about the bumpy petals. I meant to do a bumpier petal one because there are poppies with that more ruffly petal, but I do want to point something out on this. If you remember when I painted this one, I added that orange on the end and it was pretty watery. Look at how it dried. Pretty yucky. I don't like how that dried at all. All that blooms that formed just in this case weren't nice. I like them like this. So here's an example of I was not very disciplined in my water control on this one, and that's the result. So what I want to do though is indicate that on this sheet because we're going to save this in our album. So these are Filbert brush strokes. Brush stroke. Oops, ES. And for tulips. And I'm just going to mark added a very watery petal and don't like result. I'm going to say over here, love. So I like to give myself positive and a negative feedback on my paintings, just so I'm not like only looking at negative results. Okay. So I feel like this is a really great one to practice. If I were to write a note on this, I'd say, oh, I absolutely love this one. Bummed that we had that extra bleed, but again, oh, it's just so pretty. I'm gonna get over it. All right, the last thing we needed to come back to was, where did it go? Didn't I paint a stencil here that we were gonna play with once it dried completely? Yes, here it is. All right, now, one of the things that you can do with these exercises is kind of use them to help you with things like this. So maybe you choose one of your favorites of these and apply it to this one. So I'm going to get out my, ooh, I got to clean this. I'm going to get clean water for this because my water is anything but right now. Hold on a second. Okay. I'm going to take and use my very thin brush here and put a sentiment over it. I love how you think. That is such a great solution to problems like that too. Put a sentiment over it. Okay. So I'm just working in my wet or my white gouache. So gouache, I think we may have talked about it when I was swatching my paint, but white gouache is like really opaque watercolor. So it has a lot of the same properties as regular watercolor. There is not a clean thing in there. So, oh, you know what? I'm going to grab something. Give me 1 second. Oh, no, it's not in here. Well, shoot, that's not good. Where did it go? Okay, actually, I do have something I can use. So this is, if you took my watercolor week a year ago, this was in your kit, a little thing of white gouache. So we're just going to use the lid of this because I need a nice clean white area for this. But what I want to do is decorate this little stencil. So I'm doing kind of a wiggly line. This is what I was trying to do on that last flower with my white colored pencil. Watercolor pencil. I'm just zigzagging these, and that gave me a cool center. Now, sometimes this could dry to be a little bit light. Also, this is crucial that this is completely dry before you do white over the top. Otherwise, you will just get not great results. So I'm just putting little dots to fill in this center. And here again, maybe you got to practice doing your little dots on a scrap. And you know where a great place to practice is? Remember how we had these? We are practicing green. So these are great to practice white over the top to make sure it's going to be opaque. So this is where you can practice that kind of a thing. Okay. So I'm also going to do, I think, a row of circles kind of going around this border. And I'm not painting the best circles here, but that's all right. Also, do you ever notice whenever I am doing something I'm not super happy about, I'll say, that's all right. You got to tell yourself it's okay, because there's plenty you're going to do that you're not going to love, but that's part of the process. And it is a process. So if you are frustrated that things, you painted 3 flowers and they weren't perfect, well, that's part of the process. Paint 3 more and see if you've improved. And if not, figure out what you're doing wrong. If you're not sure, text me a picture or email me a picture, or message me a picture, because I can help you figure it out. Okay. So fun. Also, using the same color pigment that we use to paint these is really fun for this kind of stuff too. And I'll show you an example of that here in just a minute. Actually, I think I already showed you because I did a little bit of that on the first one I painted. But I love this stencil because the sky is the limit as to what you could do with it. Try different color combinations. Oh my gosh, use salt. Oh, that would be fun. Try different doodling things with it. So many fun things to make this, you know, stand out. So I think I like what I've got so far here. I think I'm going to stop so I don't mess anything up. But another option would be to add, well, maybe I will add lines. Ugh. Yeah, I kind of like the lines. I'm not adding, you know, a bunch of lines, just some, and I'm trying to hit them to a dot. So yeah, there we go. Very fun. Using that white. You could do this with black, or you could do it with the cerulean and the cobalt. Very, very fun. And this is perfectly sized for a card. And gosh darn, doesn't this cerulean look a lot like Azure Afternoon? Oh. And of course, Coastal Cabana. So I feel really good about making this one into a card. I think it'd be really easy to do. Okay, so let's take a look at all of the stuff we painted tonight because it was kind of a lot. So we did, ooh, we got to finish one thing. Is that still wet? No. Okay. One thing here, and that is this. We're going to take, let's see, I'm going to actually take a smaller, ooh, that is not a clean brush. I'm going to take a smaller brush. I'm going to go into my red so it's more concentrated because I know it's pretty wet on my palette. And I'm just going to paint a little bud right there. Super cute. Okay. I'm going to set that aside. So we did our 2 poppies. We did a variety of tulips. But both good and bad. I'm going to call that bottom one that I'm covering up bad. You can't have all good images. Oh, loved the kind of dimensional poppies. And then we have kind of our more abstract poppies. All fun things. We, of course, worked on our brush strokes, and all of these things we'll add to our album. We also worked on like a little brush stroke practice sheet, which we're going to add to our album. And then this was one, sorry, I didn't mean to pull it out, but okay, where this one I kept the stencil, you know, with the breaks in between the petals, and this one I kind of filled them in and did, you know, a little bit of different stuff in each. So kind of fun. So I hope you have loved all of tonight. We did a lot tonight. And then, of course, the die cut pieces, which I'm not even going to bring in, but I will complete them and show them to you tomorrow. I'll complete the assembly. So anyway, I hope you had the best time tonight. Tomorrow is going to be a winner, and I promise you there will be a lot of bonus because I can already tell you I'm not going to finish everything that I have planned. But I will say, if you want to continue your watercolor journey with me, I have actually several options for you, and we'll talk more about that tomorrow night. So thank you guys for being here. And it's not tomorrow night, it's tomorrow afternoon we're at noon. This, you're gonna giggle maybe. I hope you'll appreciate this, but I had scheduled a massage and I scheduled my original time at the exact same time as my massage. Well, that wasn't gonna work. So I moved it up to noon. And so it'll be noon. Just watch, and that's noon central. So like right now it's 9 p.m. where I am. But I'll have the schedule. I'll send the email with all the time zones in tomorrow morning. So thank you guys so much for being here tonight. I just had the best time with you, and I hope you did too. Practice, 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 and please share share what you're doing, even if you don't love it, because I think sharing is important so other people can see that their attempts might look like your attempts. And if you would like feedback on, like, what am I doing wrong? Chances are I can help you with that. I'm not guaranteed to know exactly what the issue is, but I will do my best to try and help you figure it out, because there's nothing worse than being frustrated. And I will say, even if we're down the road, it's 2 months, 3 months, a year later, tell me what class, because I do a lot of stuff. Tell me, Dina, I'm working on Watercolor Week 2026 Fabulous Flowers, and I can't get the flower from night 3 to work. I will go back. I will look, because it's all unteachable, and I will come back and help you. It's just because the event is over does not mean Dina has left the building. She's here for you. And that goes with anything, whether it's a stamping class or a watercolor. I'm so happy to help you because I don't want you to be frustrated. And also, I always try to do things the way I would want it to be for me if I was the customer. So I always think of you as the end user. So keep that in mind. I'm here for you. But I can be much more effective when you tell me exactly what it is you're trying to paint. Because, like I said, I've done a lot of events over the years. Just give me the right context, and then I can be very helpful. All right, friends, have a good night. I will see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.